And welcome to the next video. In this video, I'm going to tell you what was the idea behind the project. In our research method class, I wanted that my students develop an experimental we do together, and I gave them a problem, which is what is the impact of affect or emotions on behavioral motivation. And this was the theory behind it. We briefly discussed it, but the main idea is that we want to measure it. We want to know whether emotions have impact on the behavioral motivation. And that is why it's nice to depict it in this way, as you see now on the screen, where you have the three layers of analysis. The first one is the theory, that affect should have impact on behavioral motivation. The next layer are the hypotheses, and here there are different ways how you can approach affect or emotions. One of them would be through the discrete emotions. You can say we are going to look at separate emotions like here, anger, happiness, disgust, contempt, and other emotions, and see how they impact the behavioral motivation. An alternative approach would be through the lens of positive or negative emotions. It means we look at the balance of emotions. You know, some emotions are positive, some are negatively felt emotions. There is a big debate whether it's a good approach or not, because even the negatively felt emotion can lead to good results, so it may be a positive emotion at the end. And also my experience shows that operationalizing emotions through the lens of positivity and negativity is seldom good because of the reason you see now on the screen. We have taken two emotions here in anger. They're both negative, they're both high aroused emotions, so you feel usually very energized if you're afraid or if you're angry. A lot of adrenaline goes to your blood and you have to do something. But the difference is that in the event of fear, we usually freeze, we disengage. In the event of anger, we usually engage, even though we shouldn't, maybe. That is why we take the two emotions here in anger, and we also will have a control group, which is of course not depicted here. And on the right hand side, we have the behavioral motivation, and here Carver and White wrote about the behavioral inhibition and behavioral activation. It means in the motivational approach, we can look at it through the lens of inhibition or activation. Inhibiting means we stop doing something, we disengage. Activating means by contrast, we engage into something. And the hypothesis would be, or the two hypotheses, the first one would be that fear increases behavioral inhibition, so this disengagement, and decreases behavioral activation or engagement. And the opposite should be true for anger. So anger should decrease the inhibition and increase the activation. And the next layer is actually how we want to measure it. There are different ways how you can operationalize the emotions. As we run an experiment, usually you show either a video, and we did it. You can find in one of my papers the videos that we use to elicit certain emotions. An alternative approach would be using the autobiographic emotional memory task, where you ask people to remember a situation where they felt in a certain way. It means you write a text which sounds more or less, please describe a situation from your working life or family life, it depends on what is your focus of research, when you were really afraid, and what was the case for the fear, and how did you feel in that situation. And please describe your feelings in a way that the person who is going to read this text start feeling like you felt at that time. You use the same text, but you just substitute the word fear through anger. And for the control group, we want to have a kind of boring or baseline emotion. Usually we ask people to describe, let's say, the daily routine, when they wake up, when they go to work, what kind of transportation they use, do they go by bus or by tram, and so on. So just any task that will not elicit an emotion, something routine task. For the neutral emotions, by the way, you can use a boring video. You should use a video, but for this one we use the meditation video. You can find it in our paper that we published at the International Conference on Information Systems, where we used the meditation video. We pre-tested it and showed it really worked fine. People were just calm, disengaged, slightly positive, but not too positive, and this is how you can also manipulate the emotion with a video. In our event, it's autobiographic emotional memory task, so people had to write something about how they felt. And at the end, we used the behavioral inhibition scale and behavioral activation scale proposed by Carver and White in 1994. You can find the paper, you can find the scale there. Of course, I have the scale, and this is how the scale initially looks like. But as we wanted to learn research methods and we wanted to show that some questionnaires can be adapted, we developed a certain version of the questionnaire where we substituted some words. Let's say instead of a person's family is the most important thing in life, we just wrote here, my colleagues are the most important thing in life. Even if something bad is about to happen to me at work, so adding this at work, I rarely experience fear or nervousness. At work, I go out of my way to get things I want, and so on. So we just added colleagues at work, and so on, as you see, mostly at work. Such changes to a questionnaire are allowed, but you will have to run additional tests depending on how much you change the questionnaire. If it is only adding few words, additional internal consistency tests like Cronbach's alpha would be sufficient. If you made larger changes, then you have to run the exploratory and confirmatory factor analysis, which is not part of this video, but I can recommend you videos by James Gaskin, who shows how you do it in Amos. So, but for now, it is actually what we need. And in the next stage, we develop an experiment in Qualtrics and collected data. If you're in Qualtrics, you can download data in different forms, in different ways, but this will be the topic of the next video. See you in the next video.